The first of the techniques that we're going to look at today is one of transferring from a simple inkjet print. This inkjet's been printed on 80-gram paper, standard technique, and quite colourful. A few things we're going to need. We're going to need a piece of paper to receive our print. This is 280-gram Fabriano. It's a watercolour paper. It's quite smooth and receptive. A little bit of masking tape to stick down the transfer sheet and the receiver sheet. We need a credit card of some sort, something that's quite broad and flexible and flat. We also need this, a Teflon baking sheet. If you haven't got one, that's fine. You can use a polythene bag. And it's really there just to smooth out the abrasion on the surface of the print. We need a rather large heavyweight book, a fine cookery book here by Thomasina Mears, which you might have used, I don't know. And finally we need this. We need some water, a J-cloth, and a very small amount of detergent that's gone in there. Just dishwashing liquid is absolutely fine, just to make a few bubbles, and it'll help the migration of the ink to the paper. So our piece of paper goes down flat. This is our receiver sheet. Onto the receiver sheet I'm going to stick the inkjet print and centre it where you want it. You can see the image through the back, so it's actually quite easy. This needs taping down on two long edges. So here we go with a bit of tape on one edge first of all. That's got that one. Smooth it out a little bit. Because the paper reticulates when it's damp, it's ideal to be able to lift back the print and see how it looks. Right, so once you have your print adhered to the transfer sheet, then all we're going to do is to use some water, put the water, squeeze out the J-cloth first of all, and what you're going to do is just lightly moisten the surface of the print. You can see the image showing through quite clearly. This is quite thin paper, so it shows up quite quickly. Try and get it as even as you can. You'll probably find that there are bits that you forget. It doesn't really matter that much, but try and cover all the area of the print that you actually want to transfer. I don't tend to bother too much about the edges because in this instance it's not that important. You can lift it back and try and flatten out as many of the creases as you can. If you do end up with creases, don't worry about it too much. It just means that the image won't be quite as sharp on those areas as it would be otherwise. And go over it a few times. Don't rub too hard, otherwise you'll tear through the surface of the paper. That's beginning to look okay. We've managed to get it quite smooth and not too bubbly. And give it a dab here and there just to make sure it's adhering. You'll notice that the print is, we're looking at it through the back here. When you make your prints, you'll find that they're laterally reversed, so left becomes right and so on. It's a mirror image. If you want the image around the other way, you're going to have to laterally reverse your print. So this is the baking sheet which has gone over there, and all I'm going to do now is just to rub over the surface of the baking sheet, pressing down firmly. This will press down the paper into the receiver sheet. Makes a very nice scrapey noise. A bit like having a chalkboard with a piece of chalk that scrapes. Okay, so that's really flat now, so just a question of putting the weight on there, going away, having several cups of tea and leaving it to fester for a while. Oh, and clearing up, of course. So as time has passed, what happens is that the ink should transfer. Take the book off, take off your baking sheet as well, and now we should see revealed the absolute majesty of Gauguin's self-portrait with halo. So pulling this back very slightly, if the paper tears at this stage it doesn't matter too much, it's not the end of the world. So pull that back when it comes off the paper, being a bit fickle, and just reveal it. Because it's stuck down on the other back edge, it means that if it hasn't transferred sufficiently, you can actually go back and give it another quick rub. If it hasn't transferred, just reposition the paper over the top again and put your baking sheet on and give it a gentle going over with your credit card. More scraping noises. And that should have pushed it down quite well. And you should see the print revealed just a little bit more cleanly. You might need to do that several times. You will find that the colour isn't quite as saturated as the original print because it's transferred. Some of it remains on the original paper and not on the transfer. If you want to, you can go over with the credit card on the back of the very wet print, and that should help transfer a little bit more. Now, when you're happy with it, just remove the print from the receiver sheet. Mostly comes off, and gasp in amazement at the wondrousness of your transfer. There it is. So there we have a transfer. The next method we're going to be using is from a piece of printed material. So this has come from The Guardian, and it's probably, well, adequate. It's probably a little bit old actually. The fresher the ink, the better the transfer. Again, I've stuck this to the paper, and this time we're going to be using a solvent. I'm using lighter fuel, but you can use isopropyl. If you are using a solvent of any sort, please wear rubber gloves. And I'm using a piece of paper tissue here, just a piece of paper towel. So the process is that you squirt the back of the print with lighter fuel. This should go into the paper. It should dissolve the ink and allow it to migrate to your receiver sheet. Give it a good old rub with the paper towel. Some of the ink comes off, of course. And then go over it with the credit card again and try and smooth it out, and that should help it press into the paper a little bit more. Now what you end up with is a fairly grey image, but it's one that you can work into. If you have a pencil, you can accentuate various areas quite easily because you can see what you're doing. A nice faint transfer, and that I think is absolutely fine for the sort of things that we need. So bear in mind that different surfaces behave differently, and that you will find that your transfers will vary between different receiver sheets as well. So whatever the paper is that you have, it might or might not work as well as other papers. Anyway, there you have it. There's a couple of methods there for you to be getting on with. This time we haven't looked at the method I showed you the other evening, which was using PVA. PVA has its difficulties, and I'm going to do another video for that later on. But I wanted to get this to you so you can actually see how the process works. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy getting your prints transferred, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.